In this video, in the next 20 to 25 minutes, we are going to deal with two things. First being the term political, and second, the idea of political theory. What do we mean to say when we are uttering the term political? What does it mean? And how political theory can be defined, or how political theory can be understood. So let's begin with the term political. The term political has multiple meanings. The first goes back to classical Greece and is derived from the word polis, which literally means the city, but is better, more properly understood as a place with a common world, or even more simply, a community. Political then pertains to whatever is done within or by the community. More specifically, it refers to decision making within and about the community. We know that decision making itself has a specific connotation. And what does that mean? To be political, to live in the polis, as Hannah Arendt tells us. Hannah Arendt is a scholar, tells us that to be political means that everything is to be decided through words and persuasion and not through force and violence. The term political then points to a specific mode of decision making by words, not by force. However, the term political also refers simultaneously to what decisions are about. When we use the term political in this first sense, we speak not merely about life, but necessarily about the good life of our community. Thus, we may ask, given that we live by a certain conception of the good life, who is to be a member of the community and why? Who is to rule? That is, take fundamental decisions about the community and for what reasons? How resources are to be distributed and to whom and why? In this conception, as we can see, the empirical and the normative are completely intermixed when we are asking questions which are connected to both normative and empirical dimensions of human existence. Also, we can notice that no distinction has emerged between political and social spheres in this context. Nothing that we now consider to be merely social is outside the political. So, this is falling between the public political and the private household. So there is no distinction, which generally we make here. This is a classical view of political. So on this classical view, then, there is no distinction between social and political theory, as I said just now. Political theory is about how and with what justification decisions are made concerning the good life in a community. Now, what happened over a period of time, and particularly with the advent of modernity, the meaning of the term political appears to have changed. How to understand this change? To understand this change, let's go back to what I said above. That means earlier. In classical Greece, the term political had to do with fundamental decision making about the affairs of the community. To make decisions, however, one must first have the power to do so. If the entire community is involved in decision making, then decision making presupposes the collective power of the entire community. The term political then may also refer to this collective power and to the use of this power to make decisions. And political science or political philosophy may be viewed as the study of this collective power. However, as is well known, even in Greek societies, decisions were not made by everybody. Power was not exercised by everyone. We know that slaves, women, and aliens were excluded from the decision making process. One might then say that decision making or the decisions about the entire community were taken by some, only by excluding others from the processes within which they were made. Some people had the power to make decisions about everyone only on condition that they also exercise power over some other people. Of course, this can be said only with hindsight. People living at that time did not see their own condition as we now describe it. With the advent of modernity, this meaning of the term power became far more explicit. Indeed, the classical meaning of power as the collective capacity to decide about the community was almost completely obscured and replaced by the second meaning of power as the capacity of some people to act in a manner that thwarts the significant interest of others, that marginalizes and excludes them so that they are left with no ability or capability or capacity to take decisions about themselves or about the whole community. Power came simply to mean power over others. Correspondingly, the term political refers to this power over others. Political science then came to mean an empirical inquiry into the exercise of this kind of power. And political theory, the most general reflection on the processes, mechanisms, institutions, and practices by which some people are excluded by others from significant decision making. Yet another related meaning emerged under conditions of modernity when major sites of decision making were relatively separated from the rest of society and were concentrated in a specific set of institutions designated by the term state. And this is related to the point that a new concept is socially emerged, which was distinguished from the political. So here, a distinction between social and political is becoming clearer. But if politics, considered as a comprehensive inquiry, is the study of decision-making power, then the birth of the modern state naturally implied that the major object of the study of political science and political theory is nothing but the state itself. Indeed, the term political was itself identified with anything pertaining to the state rather than to the entire society. Political science and political theory studied the institutions of the state, which included the government, the judiciary, the bureaucracy, the military, the police, and so on. Sociology and social theory, on the other hand, studied all those structures, processes, and institutions that fell outside the state. Some people continue to believe that a study of the state was the study of how power was exercised on behalf of and in the interest of all the individuals who make up a particular society. Others who were cynical of this view saw political science and political theory as the study of how these institutions take major decisions on behalf of a small elite or the dominant class to the exclusion of the interests of the subordinate classes or subaltern people. Firstly, it means the collective power to take decisions about every aspect of the good life in the community. Notice here that political here refers both to power and to ethical values. And second meaning of the political is that the power of some groups to control or subordinate others in order to realize not the good of the entire community but their own narrow interests. So, shortly, we can say by summarizing this, after this kind of an overview, that political means to get others to do things that might go against their own interest. Here, the term political is used to relate power embodied in a separate institutional apparatus, that is, the state, and therefore we have yet another meaning of the political, that is referring to state power used to realize the common good or values, or yet another meaning, that is referring to state power used to exercise domination by one group over others. But how can the entire community take decisions when a group excludes others from collective decision making? Well, in this case, we might say that a split has occurred between the empirical and the normative aspects. The subordinate group may be excluded from decision making, but may have the desire to forge a new world where everybody is involved in decision making about shared interests and values. But what if we begin to use the term political for values which are common to the entire community, in abstraction from both power and specific communities? What if it refers to values common to all living species? Here, polis is coinciding with cosmopolis, and in this sense, political means values common to the entire humanity, even all living species. Now let's recall that the political sphere may also include the art of imagining new values and devising new worlds. Thus today we use the term political in each of the five senses as both an empirical and a normative concept. As I said just now, we use the term political in each of the five senses which we just discussed, and as both an empirical and a normative concept. Then, what is political theory? Political theory, then, is a particular form of word-dependent systematic reflection on at least five things or any of these five things. And what are these five things? Firstly, political theory means the collective power to take decisions about the good life of a community. And political theory is what? A systematic study regarding this thing. Secondly, it deals with the mechanisms by which power is exercised by one group over another. Thirdly, the use of state power to achieve the good of the community. Fourthly, the use of the state by one group to exercise power over another. And yet another meaning of political related to this political theory is that it reflects on or it does a systematic study or focuses on the values by which a particular community governs its life. Finally, we can say that there can be a grand political theory that reflects on the general conditions of the entire humankind or the values by which the entire humanity may govern its life. So this is in short, briefly, the meaning of political and political theory.